Now, to our key speaker, April Rodriguez-Plott of the Defense Counterintelligence Security Agency. April is a senior industrial security special agent with over a decade of experience. She holds a master's degree in organizational communication and a certification in security fundamentals and industrial security oversight. April oversees 50 facilities in Orange County. There's no doubt she's a very busy lady, and we really appreciate her taking time with us today. Hello, April, and thank you for joining us.
All right. Hello and good morning. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here again. And so I do apologize. I think I didn't give an updated bio. So I wanted to just share in this moment that I am now the Deputy Director for Industrial Security in the Western region since April of 2023. And SMNA actually has a new senior industrial security specialist, and I'm sure you'll meet very soon. He just joined the Cypress field office, and his name is Mark Jones. He's got a lot of experience in the National Industrial Security Program, and I think you'll find that having him as your assigned industrial security rep will be very fulfilling. He's very engaging, educated on security, and will definitely support your facility well.
Well, thank you, and congratulations on the promotion.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I am really excited to share with you all some security review updates and National Industrial Security Program updates. What you do is critical to sustaining our technology advantage, keeping the warfighter safe, keeping those services and critical technology capability sets protected to the customer, for the customer. And so thanks for having me. Let's talk about some of the things that are going on in the industrial security world from an oversight perspective. All right. So I am not Gary Triplett, but that's the gentleman who authored this. So I'll make sure to get his name off the slide next time. We can go to the next slide. Okay. So today we're going to talk about security reviews and rating metrics, just to give you an idea of what's going on with other companies such as yourselves when it comes to security reviews. I'll let you know a little bit about our security review model, the current and future state, give you a little bit of idea about things of non-compliance that comes up in terms of security reviews, and talk a little bit about some of the available resources. And I would just suggest, as you're someone who possesses a clearance, thinking about how this informs you is through education. And I understand that it's your Security Awareness Month where you take your annual training to meet to satisfy the DoD requirements. Your knowledge and awareness of those things that you'll receive training on all feed in to kind of these things that we see from a big picture view about from a compliance point of view and how sound a security posture is at a company. We can go to the next slide. All right. So for our security review and rating metrics, we deployed a new security review and rating process back in 2001. Your company has actually undergone a security review under this model. And so Jennifer knows a lot about this. In 2023, we conducted 3,630 security reviews. In Western region, our number was just north of 630. And that is a lot of security reviews to conduct in one region. And what we're looking at this year is closer to 700 to get to companies that haven't had a security review in some time. So you can imagine from an oversight perspective and getting out and assessing companies, there's still some backlog that we have to drive down from the impacts of COVID. And getting we've got 13,000 contractors in the National Industrial Security Program. So trying to get everybody within the window and of appropriate security review. Less than 1% of the facilities that were reviewed in fiscal year 23 were in non-conformance. That is a very small percentage. So that means, 99% of them were satisfactory, commendable, or superior, which is really a really great a demonstration of maintaining security programs during, times of change from an industry perspective. And we were also using a new rating model. So general compliance was definitely a measure that many of the companies in the NISP met. And approximately 23% received higher than a satisfactory. And what that means is commendable or superior. Where we derive our definitions from for the rating category is generated from the DoD volume. There's a DoD volume 1 that we use for industrial security for government activities. And in there, it actually specifies a superior company shall have, and it lists out very definitive criteria. That is what is associated into our rating model. Same thing for commendable and as you go on. So even though we adopted and implemented a new security review rating model, it is consistent. The outcomes are consistent with our historical norms. So just because we implemented something new that industry hadn't experienced before, it meant we still had similar outcomes in terms of, you know, the ratings with industry at large. So we do have some change coming though. One of the areas of feedback that we received from industry, from NISPAC and other industry members, is we have this new model. I'm sure, Jennifer, you'll remember this well, in that essentially the way it worked is you have different categories. You have NISPOM implementation, management support, security awareness, and security community. These are kind of the pillars of the security rating system. I briefed these last year when we met. And essentially what we're doing now is creating a quantitative overlay to these definitions, because right now what we have is a lot of policy framework, but it can lend itself to some subjectivity. And so we're creating like new numerical values to associate with the rating criteria, so that we can have, you know, a number range associating with the actual result outcomes as superior, commendable, satisfactory. Anything below that is non-conformance, and we have some work to do with the company and a customer, their customers that are providing the DoD contracts. So all that to say, we got feedback and we heard it. This lends to subjectivity. We need something more quantitative. We need, you know, numerical values and ranges so we can actually understand this model better. And so that's what we're currently doing. We have a working group that is dedicated to looking at our current model, moving it into having a qualitative foundation, but we're not changing the compliance first model that we currently have. So right now, what we're currently doing, we're kind of in phase 2, where we are refining this new rating model because we rolled it out in FY22. We're refining it right now. There is going to be a pilot that happens in Q2 and Q3 of FY24 with a couple of industry partners within the NISPAC. They've already kind of raised their hands and said, we'd like to, you know, be a part of this pilot. I'm a part of that working group right now, and we are almost done with the design phase and ready to brief to senior leadership what the pilot will look like. The pilot will take place. We'll integrate feedback as we go along. And then what you'll see is that quantitative piece of this rating framework will be implemented in fiscal year 25. And it should be Q1, so October of 2025. So we've got some work to do this year, but there will be updates about it. So this is really more relevant to your FSO and your senior management officials, but there will be more information at dcsa.mil as well. Okay. So with this next slide, this one's always kind of helpful to see because this is the most common instances of non-compliance associated with a security review. So some of these fall within your FSO's lane of responsibility. But what I want to key in on here will actually be the training aspects that apply to everybody who holds a security clearance. And then Jennifer, if you have any questions after this, we could separately talk about some of the other areas that are more specific to FSO oversight, but really what contributes to a company performing well in all of these areas is a well-informed and educated group of security professionals in their organization that are handling classified material. So some of those would be that fall within everybody's purview is if you go down to 117.8 Charlie, that is reporting requirements to be submitted to the Cognizant Security Agency, which is DCSA. Reporting requirements fall within all kinds of different domains. So there's company reporting responsibilities, and then there's personnel who are responsible for reporting, life changes. If you get a citation that's over $350, all of these things align with that wonderful equip your investigation for your for access to classified information and your national security clearance. When you apply for that, you go through a series of questions, and all of those areas fall within adjudicative guidelines. A good rule of thumb is anytime you've answered no to that initially, or something changes within that realm of life, like maybe foreign investment, foreign contacts, even though you're not in maybe a periodic review, or you haven't specifically been asked, have you had any changes? There is responsibility upon those entering into the agreement to have a personnel security clearance to report those on an ongoing basis. So we get those, and you're not responsible for the reporting as a cleared person, but your facility security officer is, and they can't report what they don't know. So creating visibility of what your requirements are, and your life changes are, is really important to the posture of your security program. Another thing that comes up is insider threat training. It's a requirement of annual training. Every company can, really implement the insider threat training to the degree that the curriculum that they want to. We have developed content, and then we have a lot of companies that like to develop it their own. Sometimes they bring in a counterintelligence special agent to give this briefing, the security awareness briefing on insider threats. I know other companies that will invite the FBI in, and so long as those briefings meet that criteria that is in the policy, then that accounts for the annual awareness training. A lot of companies want to make sure that their folks have seen and signed and attested to that they understand this training. So you tend to see a little bit of a blended form there. But even just one person, can cause this to be an act of noncompliance. So it's really important to make sure to get that done and stay, abreast of your responsibilities, but also what the risks are. Let's see. And some of the other areas, so you'll see down on 117.12K, security training pops up again. And this is your annual refresher training, separate from insider threat, different policy, different requirement. And what this does is kind of go over there's 5 core criteria that have to be there: threat awareness, overall classification responsibilities, reporting responsibilities. It also speaks to, when we talk about reporting responsibilities, there could be a whole briefing just on that. And I would invite you to suggest to invite your counterintelligence special agent, because they cover that really well. And then also anything that is security related, associated with your specific job duties. This is an area where there's always opportunity to improve, because every defense contractor provides something unique to the government. And so every role and responsibility this is an area where you can take a cookie cutter training and make it a little bit more specific to your environment. Let's see. Aside from that, the rest of this is really like the security management aspect. So we can go on to the next slide. All right. And on this slide, I would like to just focus in on, you all don't have classified systems here. These are all information system related. So should you ever have an information system at your facility for specific DoD contracts, definitely you would have an assigned security professional associated with that. And we don't have to go over these because it's really not applicable to your environment. So the security review and rating process resources. I provided this in case anyone is interested. I know generally during a security review, we look at records, we go over process and procedure with your facility security officer, we talk to your senior management officials, and then generally we'll interview some of the folks with personnel security clearances. Our reason for doing that is to understand what the security education environment is like, what are some of the topics that are covered. Another part of that is to understand and really do a verification check of the need for a clearance. What do you do that requires access to classified information? Because those are national standards for having a clearance, to have a bona fide contractual need for it. So those are some of the things that we look for in an interview. And if you have any questions or thoughts around, the security review process outside of that for kind of a bigger picture, there's some available resources. And we could go to slide 8. So next part is operational updates. We could go to next. Okay, so this is seed 3, the Security Executive Agent Directive, number 3. This applies to everybody with a clearance, and this is an area that a lot of folks are still becoming familiar with. When you hold a clearance, there are certain reporting requirements. One of those, there are a lot of things that have changed in terms of reporting requirements. There's some foundational things like adverse information, foreign contact, foreign influence. Not that any of those things are not okay. It's just if you have access to classified information and that type of suitability assigned to you, we want to make sure that you're meeting those requirements for reporting any of those things to ensure that you are low risk to national security. There's no shortage of in the news of folks that are, there are obviously things that could have been reported that were not, that would have made an adjudicative determination that would have perhaps resulted in a termination of a security clearance. We do see those come through. But when it comes to seed 3, these are reporting requirements. I always recommend, there's policy associated with this, but it's a newer policy. And there's a really great desk reference that talks about all these adjudicative standards and things that should be reported. So foreign travel is a newer one. Before 2021, reporting foreign travel was a best practice at a company. Now it is a federal code of regulation requirement for the National Industrial Security Program. So if you have unofficial travel, you are reporting that to your FSO. And then if you have travel affiliated with your DoD contracts, that's considered official travel, and that is not reported. A lot of companies just have a report everything, so that a lot of times it's you record your own foreign travel, and that will help you the next time you pop up for a reinvestigation. Having that timeline of visibility and awareness is always helpful. In some cases, it's like, let's integrate security early. Let's talk through this to see if this needs to be reported. There's a system that ingests all this information. It's called the Defense Information Security System, DIS. And this is the system that it holds all your clearance information associated with your company, and it talks about your foreign travel under each individual person. The reason this is a great tool, one, we need a repository to verify that it was reported, but also there's going to be great efficiencies in terms of systems in the future, because we have the background investigation that mission that left OPM, that was taken away from OPM and was brought into an umbrella within DCSA. And so what's great is that there's this system that exists within our agency, and we have the background investigation mission. So when you have periodic reinvestigation pop up for somebody that needs to occur, all of this information is a centralized place, and you're able to then limit discrepancies within an SF-86, which is your questionnaire for access to for a security determination for a personnel security clearance. So this seed 3 is really helpful because it's a tool to help you know, what should I self-report? It goes, it even gets into cryptocurrency. That doesn't say all cryptocurrency, but it gives you some parameters around what you should look for and be aware of in terms of reporting. It also gets more clear on in terms of mental health and things of that nature. Okay, so National Industrial Security Program updates. We do have a new system that was launched in January, the National Background Investigation Services. Onboarding has occurred. This is more of a security function. What is happening is we are going to transition systems. We have the system that currently exists where your clearance lives and is held by your company. And it is for a while, it's going to live in DIS and also in NBIS, this new system. What's going to happen in future iterations is we are going to transition over into NBIS. The reason for that transition is greater functionality, we have a lot of mission sets that fall within DCSA. So what I'm talking to you about is background investigations. We also have the central adjudicative facility that once existed outside of our organization, and now they're within. This system centralizes everything for government, for industry, the mill depths. So that's really great because kind of clearances will be housed all in one place. And so we're looking forward to this, but it will roll out in phases. We don't have to talk to the next point. That's more for your facility security officer in terms of required forms and updates to forms. Unofficial travel. This is really foot stomping the SEED 3 again. This is a very commonly found, I won't say vulnerability, but administrative finding during a security review, identifying that unofficial travel has occurred. So this is a link on how to brief unofficial foreign travel. It's dedicated to information around SEED 3, what you should report. And I would definitely say, as you look at that, as you move forward, going through your security education and awareness, it's something to just ask questions and connect with your FSO, let them know about it. And that way you can get in that habit of regularly reporting your travel requirements if you possess a security clearance. The next particular update, this is another system where we're centralizing the contracts for DD254s. For those that are not familiar with them, for those of you that possess a clearance, the reason that you have one is because there's a contract with this affiliated document that states there's a security requirement for you to possess a clearance. And so we're starting to ask government customers and industry, prime and subcontractors, to begin to use this NCCS system. Why? Because it consolidates and centralizes DD254s. There's a lot that's flowing out there in the world, and this is a really great way to centralize the government's issuance of these types of contracts, who's performing on what contract. It allows us to drill down and get a better picture if you're working on a particular type of platform or acquisition cycle. This is going to allow better visibility of supply chain. Now, what we're asking in our charter, when you think of DoD, it's small. Cleared defense industry is small compared to the defense industrial base, because not everybody has a facility clearance for the type of performance that you do. But in any regard, it does help narrow down the supply chain. And I see a couple questions coming through. I will ask if those can be read aloud in just a moment, because I'm working from a small screen today, so it would be good to have some help with that. Last update here. There are some updates for physical security. I know you guys don't have any of those particular areas at your facility, but there are new forms and requirements affiliated with building out physical space for accredited systems or different types of different operational uses that you may need for access to different type levels of information. And so those physical security build outs that are approved by DCSA have a new form, and that's essentially what this is all about. And there's also an effort within DCSA to ensure that the field, meaning folks who are at different field offices across the US, are spending time where critical technology is developed. If there's no information on site, like tangible information that has been furnished to you or that you're developing, we have stood up a center called the National Access Elsewhere Oversight Center. And so any companies that we consider them non-possessing, they're not holding classified material, they are sometimes put in alignment with Oversight Center. And so what I'd like you to know about that is, depending on whether or not you have contracts that require you to have information on site, it may mean migrating to this Oversight Center. And there's someone just like me in my past role as industrial security specialist that kind of services those, but more remotely. I'm not sure if you're able to help me out with questions that have come through.
Yeah, so I don't see any questions in the chat, but I know that there's one question that I'm sure a number of us are wondering about, and that is, there's a lot of spoofing emails out there for a variety of things. If with somebody with a clearance, how should we be handling that, and what's the procedure we should be following?
Yeah, so for spoofing emails, one of the things, so not all spoofing is a suspicious contact report, and that can be a little, there can be a little gray area there in determining. What I always suggest is every company has an assigned industrial secure, not assigned, an information system security professional that can help the ISR. You also have a counterintelligence security agent. They get all of those suspicious reporting. If you get something that looks like spoofing, make obviously all the rules applying, don't click on anything. But if you can expand the header, if you can expand that header and kind of, some companies have like a security box report as suspicious that can be vetted. Your FSO can work with IT to expand those headers, save them as PDFs and send them over to our counterintelligence special agents. What they can do on their systems that exist at a different level is they start to search those IP actors. And one of the things that can happen with that is if that is a known actor that may be targeting other defense industry, maybe that has some malicious activity associated with it, we can give you that feedback. And it's always good to block that IP. The cyber game is one of those games where it's you're constantly defending those. And I know I've spoken to your IT before, and so you guys have a really you have a very strong infrastructure when it comes to filtering, and so I do know that. But for anything that does get through, that kind of makes you go, I wonder if this is worth reporting as suspicious. Let DCSA do the work. Just forward it. Make sure it's known. Don't touch anything. Potential phishing. We call them SCRs. That counterintelligence agent will look at what you send. They will let you know whether or not it had any CI value. And if we start to see a trend, we can say, you know what, this is definitely just a new scam we've seen. You can defer from sending these. But we don't know until we have a baseline of, what's an anomaly at your facility. And so we only can establish that if we get the reporting.
Thank you. There are a couple of questions that have come up in the chat. The first is, do interim clearances need to be requested when SF-86 is submitted? And is there a mechanism to expedite clearance processing?
Yeah, so currently we have a pretty good, I've gotten some recent background investigation updates. There's significant reduce in workforce. There were some new contract investigators that were brought on to help reduce the backlog. We're not as bad on the backlog as we used to be, but we definitely have a significant decrease in background investigators. So if you're seeing a little bit of a higher timeline, it's probably affiliated with that. Another part of that, when somebody is put in for an initial personnel security clearance, there are a couple of checks that occur that happen with the internal to DCSA. Internal with DCSA, what we call our vetting risk entity. And when you put that in, if somebody hits, like, their fingerprint checks go through, there's some other background checks. There's 3 checks. I know fingerprints. I know some criminal background checks are some of the first ones. And there's a third one that I'm forgetting here. Those are automated checks. They get the green light, essentially. They get put into interim status. And so that's a matter of 1, workflow, and 2, that cleared person's 86 hitting all those thresholds that go through this automated system. That's one of our efforts to support industry to get to work faster without a final. That's, of course, something that is very much determined on what do you need access to, what does your contract say, because based off of what you're handling, it could require a final.
Right. So one last question.
Yeah.
And then we'll wrap up here. So is it true that since 9/11, a cleared person cannot maintain a clearance if they're not currently working on a project or active military?
So I'm going to step back and say, from a DCSA perspective, when it comes to access to classified information for companies that possess clearances in our oversight. It doesn't have to do with the 9/11 timeline. There are DoD directives that require a company. So there's DFARS clauses, right? When in a contract, when you win it and you require access to classified information, then you have this associated contract document that says, this is the type of information that you need and the level of the clearance that you need. If you are not a person supporting that effort, then that is correct. You do not have a need to maintain a clearance. Now, is there something to say for bidding business development where you need to be in certain environments and access during those phases of development? Yes, making sure that you have those RFPs, and sometimes those RFPs of DD 254s, making sure that those are directed to your FSO so that they can validate the need for a personnel security clearance. That is what drives your need for SMA to hold a clearance.
Well, April, thank you so much. This was extremely informative, and
You're
as
welcome.
always, a great presentation. We really appreciate you taking the time to come and share this information with us.